San Diego reports as one of the hottest real estate markets in the nation based on the recent Corelogic home price index. I'll share with you a full update on how San Diego ranks, what the rate of growth we're seeing in home prices, and what we can expect on the horizon with property values. Many people wouldn't believe this to be the case. And breaking news, Jerome Powell is officially canceling the recession. More seriously though, Jerome Powell, head chair of the Federal Reserve, spoke this last week at the Kansas City annual Fed conference at Jackson Hole and said some crucial things about the future of interest rates. Stick around to hear what finally happened to get Jerome Powell to finally give in. All this covered here in this week's San Diego Market Matters. I'm Karl Kyler, your San Diego Realtor. Now, if you find these SD Market Matters videos valuable to you for your San Diego real estate market updates, consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video to show your support and to stay regularly in tune with the happenings I report on about the San Diego market. And if you're thinking of selling or buying here in San Diego, there's a link in the description below where you can schedule a meeting with me so we can discuss your goals and how I can help you achieve them. Now, let's get into the good stuff. San Diego's been reporting as one of the hottest real estate markets for some time now, and there are two reports that I reference primarily on my channel here: the Corelogic Home Price Index and the Case-Shiller Home Price Index. Corelogic is slightly more current than the Case-Shiller. As of right now, the most recent Corelogic report is reporting on home prices for June of 2024, while the most recent Case-Shiller report has only covered through May of 2024. So there's a slight difference. Outside that, there are some other micro differences in the data they pulled to assess and measure price growth. But bottom line, in both cases, these reports highlight San Diego as a regular top reporting city for real estate price growth. The August Corelogic reports a nationwide increase year over year of 4.7% on home prices, while month to month they report a 0.3% growth. And if you look at the last four reports, each month the rate of growth is retreating. This means two things. Home prices is continuing to grow, and at the same time, its rate of growth is coming down to a more reasonable and sustainable rate. What it does not mean is that the market is crashing. Now, is it possible for Corelogic to report in September the month-over-month gain to be either zero or negative? Possibly, but not very likely, especially with the recent mortgage rate drops and what I'll cover shortly with regards to the recent Fed announcements. But what do you think will happen if you were to take a guess? Drop a comment below on what you think the month over month and year over year will come in for next month. Now, as for San Diego, the August report states that price growth came in at 7.5% year over year in the month of June. This is actually the largest drop from one month to the next that we've seen all of 2024, and the lowest rate in price growth in 2024 as well. The previous low being 7.7% in January earlier this year. This year so far, San Diego has bounced between 7.5% and 9.9% year over year and evades the top markets at risk of home price decline, which, by the way, this could be a good list for you to watch if you're looking to invest in a rental down the road. To sum up, two things are likely to happen. Number one, prices look like they're going to continue to climb, though hopefully at lower rates of growth. And number two, rents will likely climb as well. And here's something to keep in mind about the rental market in general. When it becomes more and more difficult to become a homeowner, rents climb. In our scenario, the cost to enter homeownership is a perfect trifecta. It's high in purchase price, mortgage rates, and required down payment. These are all significant barriers that keep more and more consumers as renters. Basic economics will suggest that when the supply of renters increases, but the supply of rentals does not, rents will increase as well. Fact of the matter is, you cannot lose in real estate if you play the game long enough. It's not like Vegas. Vegas is always winning. That's how it keeps growing. But in real estate, either the value of your home grows or the value you get for your home as a rental does. Now, let's look at what the Feds plan on doing with the economy and how that will affect us here in San Diego. Jerome Powell, head chair of the Federal Reserve, has incessantly withheld making any rate cuts this entire year and has maintained a restrictive policy to abide by the dual mandate issued by Congress. That being to get inflation down to 2% and to maximize employment. Over the last 2 to 3 months though, we have been getting extremely positive data suggesting that inflation is under control and on the downward trend to 2%. Now, the key to all of this is to avoid a recession, and to do so is to pivot policy prior to reaching the 2% inflation. If policy stays too restrictive for too long, then we enter a recession. Up until now, the feds have said that they want more data to confirm that inflation is maintaining its downward trend, and they also want to see the labor market soften. The fact of the matter is that the labor market was issuing too many jobs and wages were too strong. This is where they had to hinder the fuel that was feeding the rate of inflation. They had to attack the labor market. Well, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, the agency that reports on employment growth, did their yearly revision, which is common practice, and they were off, which was also expected to some degree, but not to the extent that it was reported. The BLS completed the revisions of the employment growth after initially reporting 2.9 million jobs created between April of 2023 and March of 2024. Actual employment growth was revised down 818,000 jobs, a 30% decrease from the 2.9 million initially reported. This comes out to be the largest downward revision since 2009, shortly after the peak of the world's financial crisis. But for context, this doesn't suggest that the labor market is broken, as per Logan Mohtashami, lead analyst at HousingWire. What it means is that the labor market isn't as strong as the feds thought this whole time, and the feds have overplayed their hand with regards to waiting for the labor market to shift. Now, this all comes so conveniently after Home Depot and Lowe's both report their second quarter earnings to be lower than expected. This implies that not only the cost of goods are exceeding what DIYers want to take on, it also suggests that there's a reduction in work with contracting jobs to some degree. Now, this is only a minor example of the impact of restrictive policy to get inflation under control. If consumers are spending less, not as many jobs are being created, and wages are not growing excessively, the flame of inflation is diminishing. So we have the positive data that inflation is on track to reach 2% and the updated employment growth. It seems like with this data alone, rate cuts should be in the bag come this September. And good news, they are. Jerome Powell spoke this last week at the Jackson Hole Economic Policy Symposium, and during his speech, he made a few key statements, and I quote, "The time has come for policy to adjust. My confidence has grown that inflation is sustainably on its path to 2%, and the timing and pace of rate cuts will depend on incoming data." This is clear confirmation that the Fed is pivoting on its interest rate policy and will do a rate cut at the next Fed meeting on September 18th. When Jerome Powell stated that the direction of travel is clear and the timing and pace of rates will depend on incoming data, this means that the Fed will start the process, but they'll monitor inflation in the job market to cut faster as needed. We will have a better idea of the number of cuts the feds want to do after the September meeting, because at that time, they should give us their expectations on how many times they plan to do cuts this year and next. The big question is if they'll cut a quarter point or a half point in September. And Logan Mohtashami, head analyst for HousingWire, states it so eloquently that a half point reduction is way too smart of a move for the feds. I can't help but feel bad at how much Logan Mohtashami beats up on the feds. But what are your thoughts? Do you think the feds will cut a quarter or a half? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let's see who gets it right. So what the heck does any of this have to do with the San Diego real estate market, right? Great question. As I mentioned earlier, San Diego is one of the leading cities in the country for price property growth. If the feds pivot in time and do so successfully, where do you think prices will go? What do you think will happen to rents? If mortgage rates eventually make their way to sub 6%, there's a good chance more buyers will be unlocked and then enter the market. You'll also have sellers who will then be able to sell and afford to buy their next home, typically moving up. Now, this has been a challenge in the market nationally and heavily here in San Diego, with just over 78% of borrowers having a mortgage interest rate of 5% or lower, as per a Redfin study report. These homeowners have been locked into their current home because they can't afford the elevated mortgage rates on the next home. The importance of me sharing this info with you is so that you have the information that you need to see forward as best as possible and make the best decision for yourself with regards to selling and buying real estate here in San Diego. If you're still anticipating a market crash despite the data, well, I guess anything is possible. Just don't complain if in the next 1 to 3 years, prices have only continued to rise while you held out waiting for the market crash. Now that's a wrap for this week's San Diego Market Matters video. If you found this information valuable, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for weekly updates on the San Diego real estate market. And if you're considering on buying or selling property here in San Diego, don't hesitate to reach out to me for the expert guidance tailored to your needs. As always, I'm Karl Kyler, your San Diego Realtor. I'll see you next video.